This is episode 50 of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing with my guest, Tim Lyons. Tim is the co-founder and managing partner of Cityside Capital, along with his brother, Greg. They are also the co-hosts of the Passive Income Brothers podcast. Tim has been with the New York City Fire Department for 18 years and is currently a lieutenant in the borough of Queens. Big real estate after that. Tim, welcome to the show.
Jonathan, thank you for that intro, and thanks for having me on your show.
Yeah, man. Well, let's get going where it started, because you've only been investing not that long, right? Only 3 years, 4 years?
Yeah, it was really November of 20. I started with a 3-family property. Awesome. Well, yeah.
So before November of 2020, did you have interest in real estate growing up? Had you thought about it? How did you get to real estate?
I really got to real estate because I was a burnt out W-2 worker. I'm a New York City firefighter. I love that job. I'll do anything for anybody. It's been the ride of a lifetime, as one can imagine. And I was also a registered nurse in an ER. That was like my side job, Everybody had a side job, whether they were contractors or small business owners, nurses, PAs. We had them all. But 70, 80, 90, 100-hour weeks were the norm. And, the deeper I went into financial education, Jonathan, I really found equity was the way to wealth. And it wasn't going to be saving my way to wealth. It wasn't going to be my pension. It wasn't going to be my 457. Those would help. But that was the accumulation model. And I was more interested in today. We were just talking before we started. I got, little kids, 3 little girls. I want to be able to maximize that today and not when I'm 65.
Well, so we talked a little bit about analysis paralysis in the beginning. What was the one thing that helped you do that first deal? What was the one thing that finally got you out of, that little state where you just can't make it to doing the deal? Was it the partner, the actual deal, or you going out and seeing properties, like you said, which was important because you wanted to be hands-on?
You know what? I'd heard too many podcasts, like on Bigger Pockets or Get Rich Education with Keith Weinhold. I heard too many podcasts of regular people doing extraordinary things. Teachers, firefighters, cops, accountants, stay-at-home moms. I mean, you name it. And there's a podcast out there. I'm saying to myself, if they can do it, why can't I? Right. And it was really that confidence piece. I had some money put away. I've already bought and sold my own primary residence twice. I understood the financing. I've always been a student of personal finance. I understood the pieces. I just had to take that action. Once I took the action and had the proof, I said, well, if I can do it for 3 units, why can't I do it for, say, 43? And after that 43, we very quickly partnered on 144 in South Carolina. So it just started to grow, and I started to have more of that proof. And I understood the fundamentals of real estate, being in that mastermind, being with that coach, population growth, job growth, looking at the metrics. How do you underwrite? How do you get the data? All that stuff just made sense to me. And then when you have that, I'm going to say it's very easy. It's easier to make those bigger decisions.
Yeah, well, let's talk about the mastermind a little, because it seems like finding that mastermind and coach originally was something that really helped give you the confidence. What did the mastermind mean to you? Just being able to network with other investors at your level, below your level, above your level, and then have a coach to guide you through? Because I think a lot of people are looking for that, but there's really a right time to go into it, and maybe you got into it at the right time.
When you're around people that are all kind of rowing in the same direction, it really helps, number one, keep you accountable, right? So like every week we would have our wins, our losses, what we're working on, and we'd go around the room and, that's just one little piece, like that accountability piece. And I would feel guilty if I didn't underwrite a deal, if I didn't make the calls I said I was going to make, right? But also having people that are ahead of you and behind you, but you're all going in the same direction. It was awesome if you had a question about underwriting, insurance, due diligence, whatever it might be. There was always somebody that could answer your question, either in an email, a phone call, a Zoom, right? We all learned how to use Zoom during COVID. But you know what? I found, everybody asked a lot of questions, because if somebody else had a question, Jonathan, I was probably thinking the same thing too. So it really helped, propel us forward. And, during COVID, best practices, right? How are you going to show an apartment when you have to be 6 feet away?
Yeah.
How are you going to collect rent? How are you going to do a value add project? How are you, all these things were happening in real time. Including, financing drying up, and, how do you, navigate all this kind of stuff. So the value of the mastermind was incredible. And this is coming from, again, a guy who was very skeptical about a lot of things. Kept on hearing about podcasts, people saying I spent $100,000 on coaching and masterminds. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
I almost drove off the road the first time I heard it. Right. And, that ended up being me, so very powerful stuff.
So the way that you guys are investing, when something comes to the table, what's like a definitive feature that is going to make you guys invest, through CityCap? Is it, because it's not always going to be just the metrics. I mean, in commercial, metrics are much more helpful than in just traditional residential. But what are the things that you're looking for as buyers now in these, passive active syndication type deals?
I really want to know the story. I want to know the story of the property. I want to know the story of the market, the sub-market, because look, I mean, I'm in New York, right? I'm not going to Dallas every week. I'm not going to Phoenix every week. We have teams for that, but I need to know why, right? And if there's a compelling why, then I want to see the supporting evidence, right? So it's really kind of building out that layer, right? Like, what's the story, build out the evidence, and now consider the whole package, right? Which is why I love, like, I'm not a great underwriter, but we have an underwriting team, right? Yeah. So I can just email them and call them and say, hey, what did you think about the underwriting for XYZ project? Especially in this crazy time of, uncertain insurance rates and the debt financing. Yeah. And, there's a lot that goes into these properties. So, but Greg and I, we don't believe in investing in flood zones, right? So if it's in a flood zone, it's very easy. You pull up the FEMA flood map, you type in the address. If it's in a flood zone, it's probably a hard no. Yeah. Right. Unless there's some sort of story around it. But generally speaking, it's got to be in a growth market. It's got to be in a stable market. I'm not looking for the ups, the really high ups, because then you can really face the really high, really low, downs. So, but then, that's why we have, our broker dealer, we have 20 reps, 20 groups like ourselves. We have an investment committee that we kind of talk these deals over with. So when something makes sense, we do it. Also, we're not that big of a company yet, right? So like, we can't do 2 or 3 raises in a row or at the same time, you know? So we really have to be selective about where our investors are, what are they looking for, right? And what fits into our criteria.